Thank you very much. A very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Priyank. So, Prashant is someone who's tracked Axel for the last decade and a half. I must ask you this: um, Axel made possibly some of its biggest returns in the consumer internet space, be it a Flipkart, a Swiggy, a Bluestone. And then, there was this whole software as a services story where you had winners like Amagi, ChargeBee, and so on. So, where does advanced manufacturing come into this? Have you decided that we're done with consumer internet, we're done with SaaS? Let's look at advanced manufacturing. Why and why now?
Yeah, I think Chandra again in venture, I think there's never the same 5 years as the last 5 years, or not even a decade. Every 5 years, things really fundamentally change. Um, and other than the SaaS phase that we had, I think you also saw that we invested in companies like Zetwork, where we did see that there is a shift happening in the country, right? The shift has three reasons, right? So one, I think enough is spoken about the geopolitical
Yeah,
China plus one shift,
and the
but
diversification of
the
supply chain.
diversification. But I think it's it's getting more and more real from like 2 years ago to now. If you see the impetus from various countries, and it's not just India, right? The whole idea of sovereign development for every aspect of their key technologies. I think the government is putting a lot more might behind it, right? So what was more a thought process post COVID, I think is now become more real. The second big shift that we see is, there's areas like defense, where these industries are becoming more tech led and tech first, right? So they're no longer about large scale ammunition, large scale ordnance factories. Those are up yesterday, right? The defense procurements next 5 years, you'll never recognize that these are actually defense procurements. These will be a very different nature. Then you have the global trends that we are starting to see, and of course Elon started it, where this whole idea of full stack, building a company with full stack, and investors who were software only are no longer afraid of this being a multidisciplinary world. No, it's no longer about software. I think the hardware, the AI, this what we call as industrial AI. So industrial AI, a lot of people believe can is really the future of AI. It's not software AI that is the future. So in many ways, I think it's not just an India trend that we are trying to be part of. There's a global trend where and we have seen nomenclatures like deep tech, but we'll talk a little bit more about advanced manufacturing. We think it's a much broader multi-sectoral moment for this country, and we wanted to kickstart that whole opportunity and discussion.
Right. Priyank, I remember when we interviewed Vinod Khosla a couple of years ago, we asked him why are we not seeing, the momentum when it comes to deep tech in India. And he said Indian investors love looking at revenues in spreadsheets, but if you have to build out, they don't like building assets. That's what he said. What has really changed? Is this just Axel? Is this a broader shift that you're seeing in the ecosystem? Because recently, I think General Catalyst put what $100 million in a Delhi-based a drone company called Rafael Mekfiber. So we are seeing some capital shifting, but what is happening?
I think we are not the first, but to be honest, it's founders who are leading the way into these categories and showing that there are opportunities which are available for VCs to capitalize on through them. Right. And we have a bunch of friendly investors here. Speciale is here, Java Capital, bunch of them who started investing in deep tech in India. So, deep tech in India in the last, I would say, decade or so, and like Prashant said, every 5 years is different.
But there were specialist funds.
Yeah. So I think what has happened now for funds like large funds like Axel, we see the opportunity really maturing now, like a bunch of factors like Prashant mentioned,
I think demand is shifting.
demand is shifting, right? So India domestic market has come up, and Indian companies are able to go out and win in the markets in the US and globally, right? So I have a vantage point at Zetwork where I see their US business is just growing crazily good, right? And I think that is the opportunity which is available now for us to take advantage of and capitalize on. And the big change is now it's IP driven. So to Vinod Khosla's point, at that point of time, there was no IP really. Like I think now our universities and our founders are both investing a lot in IP, and we are getting IP first ideas, which is truly uniquely global. Like our IP can win globally, and it's not about the lowest cost producer anymore. And that is what is exciting us, because if you are just doing lowest cost producer, we're going to be very hard winning against China. But now when you have IP, then you can take that IP and you can monetize for a much longer time, and you can continue to innovate. And that is where we are investing behind. Yeah.
Prashant, in terms of the types of startups that you are seeing in this space, you define this as advanced manufacturing vis-a-vis manufacturing. So, what filters are you looking at? I mean, as a consumer internet investor, you would have looked like, CAC, LTV, CAC to LTV conversion. Here, are you looking at process innovation, product innovation, equipment
Yes.
innovation?
I mean,
If
these
you
are
can
things
just.
that you will see in the report. But just to give you, I think first and foremost, like Priyank said, we are seeing is it IP led and engineering first. Does this founder have this engineering first mindset? And these innovations could be largely, and we have put them in three big buckets, but of course, a company can have more than one. The first one is product led innovation, right? So these are in a particular company, let's say like Napdrishti. Are there certain components that are first of its kind globally, not even in India, right? Is that innovation first of its kind? That's one bucket. Then we have process-led innovation. So process-led innovation companies like Simplify, right? They are using AI to be able to accelerate the whole formulations, these chemical formulations, and build more efficient ways to do that. Then we have equipment-led innovation. So in these, this is like FabEds, where it's really the equipment is the IP, right? If you didn't have the equipment, nobody can manufacture. So that's, in my opinion, that's kind of the highest kind of order. If the equipment itself is the IP, then you're N of one. Because unless, so somebody else can get the order, somebody else can get the material, but if you don't have the machine, you can't really produce the product. So those are the three buckets, and we are starting to see, and there is a fourth dimension to all of this. It's the complex integration that is required in many cases for the system or the subsystem level that makes this IP unique. So it's not always just process alone, process innovation. It's just not the product. It's usually a combination of all of it, all of this, and the integration of all of it. All of this is non-trivial, and this is what VCs like. VCs like businesses which have big moats, and the complexity of these are such that we think, when you compare them to some of the consumer companies that we are seeing that the moats here could be even deeper and more sustainable. So that's what, like Priyank said. So this is what is exciting slightly larger mainstream investors to say that, can we accelerate this? I mean, I think one of the big, uh, at least uh, common perceptions was, oh, deep tech takes time. Why does deep tech take time? Because it's capital starved. You get one DST grant, one small grant from this small organization. We from Karnataka do grants here from Elevate, but these grants are not going to help you accelerate and build companies at scale. You need a seed round is a $5 to $10 million round in many of these companies to really make it work. So this is only possible. So it's not only about the capability of the founder, but it's about now mainstream capital accelerating and compressing the gestation period.
Right, which was actually my next question. I don't want to quote Khosla again, but I am going to quote him again. He said, I have not looked at IRR as a metric for the last 18 years whenever I invested. But VCs operate on a 5-year 7-year time frame on an average. And as Prashant said, the perception for deep tech is that this is patient capital. You can't ask Agnikul to make a rocket printing engine in a year or 2 years, right? So what has changed there, Priyank?
Yeah, I mean, it's good that you brought up the Agnikul example. So because that is one company I passed when it was a seed, and it was same conversation that
You regret it?
of
Is
course
that
I
a
regret it. I mean, Srinath is going to be here on stage and discussing it, and I've told him many times that he's one of my favorite founders who I passed on, and it was that same mold of thought process that hey, it will take 8 years, it'll take probably 60, 70 million before I'll know whether it works or not, and I was scared of investing at that point of time. But I think as the AI world has shown, as all the stuff which is happening around us in the world has shown, there are no easy answers anymore. There are no easy investments anymore. There are no easy, like how many quick commerce companies we can end up doing and investing in. And I think the moats come from IP and innovation. So, and that is where we are starting to focus a lot more on. I think that is what it is. And yes, in the beginning, the first decade of Indian VC, those investments were required. We needed consumer supply chains to be working fine. We needed brands for consumers. We needed fintech. All of that is Roti Kapda Makan was needed. And now we are talking about elevating India to a next level. And that is not going to be that easy. So that is going to be by investing in all these manufacturing companies, because that is the way, that is the IP we have to invest in. So that is where we are focused on. Now, when does a big fund end up investing in a company very early on? Do we end up investing in research labs, or do we end up investing in near commercialization? I think that only time will tell. We are figuring out our right strategies. We also announced Atoms for X, which is we're looking at robotics, we're looking at drones, we're looking at defense.
In fact, advanced manufacturing would cover at least 5-6 sectors, right? From medical devices to aerospace and defense to electronics. So within that universe, is there something that you're particularly excited about?
Oh, me?
You or Axel?
I mean, Axel, you'll see three themes today. So we are doing aerospace, we are doing defense, we're doing electronics, and we're doing
semiconductors
and semiconductors. So those are the 5 themes which we are fairly excited about. And robotics. So robotics, whether AI comes first or later, we don't know, but typically those are the 6. And within these are sub themes. We spend time with experts, and Dr. Somnath is here. We were talking to him as well. He gave us his insights, like geopolitical stuff, like rare earth metals, magnets, stuff which India needs, and we need it. So our companies and founders building out, and those are very large opportunities. So we are trying to understand and build for those.
Right. And how does this work, Prashant, in a world where every day you're seeing some uncertainty on tariffs? One day it could be 25%, one day it could be 100% when Trump is not in a good mood. And you want to build, I mean, you want to fund companies that are building not just for India, but for the world. How should they operate in that environment?
So I think the comfort that a lot of us investors have today, vis-a-vis maybe 5-10 years ago, is that the government is now at. I mean, this whole idea that sovereign technologies need attention today, and that it's no longer about PLI. Now the government is talking about DLI, right? Design linked incentives. So I think the government is also very clear that I think there is close to $200 to $300 billion of imports that need to be shifted in the next 2 to 3 years. And I think this is across the spectrum. I mean, this is just not defense. I mean, there are many areas of chips, and there are many areas that
imports from US, China,
multiple countries, so I'm saying, I mean, we as venture investors would like to hazard a guess that would 30 to 50 billion shift at least in the next, and can can our startups get $5-10 billion of that, take advantage of that shift? I think yes. So while you have to build in India, that technology has to be relevant for you to go beyond India, but I think there is a new paradigm where in the next 5 to 10 years you will be able to get domestic business also get you to some critical mass in a lot of these startups.
Right. Priyank, for the roti kapda makan, as you put it, the consumer internet story, we saw two, three fundamental things that came together at the right time, right? You had Geo, which led to a huge surge in internet usage. You had eKYC, which made customer onboarding easy. And of course, you had UPI, which took care of the payment rails, which sort of gave the sector, the escape velocity it needed at the right time. What would similar factors be for advanced manufacturing or deep tech, apart from the macro factors Prashant spoke about, which is diversification of supply chains, India realizing that it needs to have sovereign tech in some of these critical sectors?
I think there was, first of all, there's just this big mind shift after COVID.
Hmm.
COVID brought about scarcity of chips. COVID brought about scarcity of imports.
And now we have scarcity of rare earth material.
Scarcity of rare earth materials. So I think that is forcing people to find innovative solutions, and that has found, like, just led everybody to think different. So I think that is the first. So without thought process and without human mind being applied to those problems, nothing will happen. Two, Prashant has said that many times. I think the government is just supportive with open. As a VC, it's almost creating a competitive advantage for all founders in the room, that hey, if you create it, the Indian government will buy it, Indian customers will buy it. I think that's very, very powerful. Third, I think if you look, the biggest, and this is a gripe point which we need to solve, all of us in the room need to solve. I have met enough industry veterans who are saying, hey, we want to do supply chains in India, but the manpower is not there, but the finesse is not there. They are not technical skills are missing. I was talking to somebody who's trying to build routers here, and they were talking about, in China they have these cities where it's called a router city, so networking gear city. Like, if there are 400 components which go into one router, everything is available within a 5-mile radius. And they were not able to do that in India. And they were like, hey, we were talking to the government. The government does not even know what regulations need to happen. So I think that piece is changing, and that piece but it'll take a lot of capital. Our capital is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
It'll take a lot more capital. Today, that capital is available from the international, I think domestic investors and domestic people are starting to put money in. We are like Karnataka government just last week announced the 1,000 crore quantum mission, right? So those deep tech investing are starting to happen and changing. I think these will yield results, and more things will start to happen. So that capital flow availability is a third piece, which is very interesting to me.
Maybe I'll just add one thing. I think entrepreneurs.
But government, you should tell Prashant. No, he's Padma Shri.
No.
He can put in a kind
Yeah,
word.
thank you. So no, but I'm just saying, the fact that consumer opportunities are coming to a stage where the large platforms are getting very powerful. So it's very difficult for entrepreneurs to find large opportunities today in the consumer space. So I think it's we are just seeing a shift in more entrepreneurs being open to now exploring this as a real, where else will I build? I don't want to go build and be an irrelevant part of Swiggy or any other company, right? So I think this is really a necessity for entrepreneurs, and I think don't you think, Brian, the founder momentum itself has shifted?
The interesting thing in this part of the world is, like, we find passionate founders, like Fabheads. He's been building his company, that product, that IP, for 8 years. 9 years, and like he was just at it, like, hell, high water, wars are happening, doesn't matter. Agnikul Srinath, right, he's been doing it.
And it didn't actually succeed the first time.
Like Pixel founders, I mean, again, one of those companies where I've been guilty of rejecting, because I thought, just out of college, they are talking about launching a satellite.
Happening.
So by the way, it's a joke in Excel. If I pass a company, it becomes a big company. So
which companies have you passed on?
Flipkart, Zomato. So I have passed enough companies, and that's what I tell founders. If I'm passing, who knows?
So rest of the partners just
Some
follow
of us
what
become successful. Go to Priyank, he'll pass you over, and you.
Actually, space tech, we'll talk a little bit more. I think it's been a little bit more challenging for us. It was not clear where the demand is, and even today, I think it is a slightly more complex demand ecosystem to solve there. Because it's not very clear immediately. There's enough procurement of 100 million, 200 million that's just going to happen in India, right?
Yeah.
It's not clear in space. If you're solving for space data or some of those other problems, maybe there is some demand. So it's not very clear. So,
Right.
so some,
Which brings me
yeah.
to my next question, Prashant. Do you see startups in the advanced manufacturing space really scaling up in India, something an Anduril, for example, has been able to do in the US?
Anduril is a very good example. Every VC in the world that you can think of wants to be in Anduril, right?
Yeah.
And there are 2-3 others. I mean, Axel has our Axel counter Helsing, which is a another one of those defense next gen defense tech AI first warfare product. So I think there is something that shifted, Chandra, in the last 6 to 9 months, where VCs don't seem to be viewing these as old world businesses. VCs asset heavy businesses, things for other PE investors. I don't think people view these companies which require assets, require slightly more heavy lifting and have more complexity. I think again, Axel, at least we are at that state of mind. But I'm sure a lot of the other VCs, we will see India capital come in. But global capital may come in many cases. We saw that in a lot of consumer businesses, right?
Yeah.
Before a lot of domestic capital opened up, global capital opened up. So GC was one such example. So we might see a lot more capital that will fuel more innovation and faster innovation here.
Right. Running out of time, so last couple of questions, Prashant. Is there a concern that, we could, I don't want to say bubble, but is there a risk that at the early stages, there is more capital now because VCs find this space so hot? I remember after Operation Sindoor, every VC said they want to look at dev tech startups. So, I mean, just want to ask you to play the devil's advocate.
I'm smiling because I think if you ask the other founders, other investors in the room and founders, they'll say there's not enough capital available right now for advanced
I
manufacturing.
mean, we have people like Saurabh from Ati Motors. I mean, he has to. It's just been very very tough for entrepreneurs to get capital in these.
But you're saying that's changing now.
It's changing, but I mean, we have many. I think at least years to before we worry about this whole bubble.
Yeah. I think we need another Flipkart. We need another Freshworks poster boy. Some of these companies have to go IPO. Hopefully it's Agnikul. Hopefully it's
We need 1 or 2 $500 million dollar companies to
Which
come.
actually brings me to my next question. When do you see the first unicorn emerging from the advanced manufacturing space? Profitable or not, up to you, but
No, see but you know what? The capital that these companies consume. See, people believe that these are asset heavy. They require a lot more capital. But Chandra, do you know how many consumer companies raised 200-300 million and spent 200-300 million in?
some of them have spent a lot of that just on a fancy office space.
Anyway, so what I'm saying is that these companies can get profitable very quickly, if not the very first year, or I mean, once they are in market. I would hazard a guess that in the next 3-4 years we will see a unicorn.
In advanced manufacturing.
Yes.
Within that, you want to call out which sector? Is it dev
No,
tech,
that'll be-
space tech, med tech?
No, we believe, I think aerospace is slightly more mature. And there's a lot of already
You
kind
already
of
have an IPO bound company, Acus, which
Acus
is
is
doing a lot
IPO
of
bound.
work
We
there.
have Acus speaking today. So I think there are few areas. I think you have companies like Data Pattern, which have already shown a path in defense to go IPO. So I'm sure next 2 to 3 years we'll see.
And Idea Forge is already
Idea Forge.
listed. Yeah. Priyank?
No, I think in all manufacturing, it's always defense and space, sovereign areas which go first. So you'll see companies come out of those. I really hope Srinath and Kshitij from Pixel, they go next, because they are, I think, in advanced matching, one of the more scaled companies. You have Ather, you have hopefully Ati Motors, right? So I mean, there's a lot riding on their shoulders. No pressure on them because they are the vanguard. But I think the more esoteric or niche areas like like rare earth metals. I think those are just starting. They will take time to develop because there's a lot of IP required in it. It's customers will have to come up, and the quality required for production has to go up significantly. So it will take, I think, a decade before you'll see some of those areas emerge. So DevTech and space probably first, and then you have these later on companies come up.
Aerospace for sure, and some robotics.
Right. Final question, Prashant. So, if a founder in advanced manufacturing wants to pitch to you, what should the one or two things be that you will look for?
No,
That you will
no,
that'll
look
make
at
you immediately sign a
no,
check.
look at the definition of what
Hmm.
we think advanced manufacturing is, and if you are largely in that ballpark, I think you should talk to Axel, and that's why we put out the report there, right?
Great. On that note, thank you very much, Prashant and Priyank, for this conversation.